Hello, fantasy friends. I'm the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart from HotRoster today, and thank God it's Friday, folks. HotRoster cards have officially been released for this weekend's slate of games, and today I'm looking at one of their cards that was designed specifically for our show, HotRoster Today, and it airs every weekday at 4:30 Eastern on the Fantasy Sports Network. And to try to help you win the card, I'm here to give you some of my favorite picks. So let's dig in. The first matchup on the card that I'm looking at features two QBs who've had underwhelming seasons so far in fantasy. Russell Wilson of the Seahawks and Cam Newton of the Panthers. These guys have both struggled. But there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel for Russ Wilson. Since week 9, Wilson is averaging 20 fantasy points a game. During that same stretch, Newton has averaged 16. He's been held to a single score in 3 of his last 5 games to boot, and I can't see how it's going to be any different this week. The Chargers are an improved defensive unit, that's for sure. With Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram manning their front 7, San Diego has done a much better job at applying pressure, and they've forced 12 turnovers since week 7. Meanwhile, Wilson is in a dream matchup against the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay has allowed an average 22-plus fantasy points to quarterbacks. I'm playing this one safe. I'm taking Wilson over Newton in this matchup. Another quarterback matchup on the second edition of the HotRoster Today card features 2 players from the AFC North, Andy Dalton of the Bengals and Big Ben Roethlisberger of the Steelers. And I got to say, I'm surprised to say this, but I'm loving Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle. Last week, with no Gio Bernard and no AJ Green, I thought this guy was dead in the water. But the Red Rifle came through in a huge way. He recorded 25 fantasy points against the Philadelphia Eagles. This week, he's primed to go off, thanks to his trip to Cleveland on Sunday. And I know it goes without saying, the Brownies, these guys are awful. Only 2 quarterbacks all season failed to score 20 fantasy points against them, and one of them was actually Big Ben Roethlisberger. Now, it wasn't all Big Ben's fault, Strong winds in Cleveland limited both teams' passing games, but this week, I like Dalton's ceiling a lot more. I'll admit, Big Ben has been playing better as of late, averaging 271 yards passing to go along with 8 TDs in the last month. But hey, Dalton plays in Cleveland. Enough said. Hard to pass on the Red Rifle for that one simple fact. I think Dalton wins in what should be considered a hotly contested contest. Another in-division quarterback tilt on the card pits Aaron Rodgers of the Packers up against Matthew Stafford of the Lions. And I'm loving Matt Stafford in this one. The Lions' leading man is coming off his best performance of the season when he tallied 23 fantasy points against the Saints. The win pushed the Lions to 8-4, giving them a chance to run away with the division title. And that should continue on Sunday against the Bears. Chicago's been all kinds of bad. They've allowed every single quarterback they faced on the road to score at least 20 fantasy points. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers will just do fine against a tough Seahawks team at Lambeau, but I'm not taking that risk. Stafford has combined for 795 yards and 6 touchdowns in his last 2 home games against the Bears, while Rodgers, he's combined for 438 yards and 3 scores against the Hawks. It's not bad, but it's not great. I expect the Lions to be throwing it early and often in the Dome, and I think Stafford's big day will outweigh Rodgers' good day. Take Stafford. Last but not least, a heavyweight matchup between 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFC, let alone in the whole NFL. Mike Evans of the Bucks and Odell Beckham Jr. of the Giants. And again, I have to hand it to HotRoster. This one is tough. But when push comes to shove, I think I give the edge to the half-point favorite, Mike Evans. Last week wasn't pretty for the former Texas A&M Aggie, but this Sunday, Evans won't be facing off against an elite quarterback like Casey Hayward. Instead, he gets the Saints in Tampa. Over his past 3 games at home, Evans has averaged 7 catches for 106 yards and a score, and I can't see why that shouldn't continue this Sunday. Meanwhile, it's hard not to be in love with OBJ this weekend. In an all-important divisional tilt against the Cowboys in prime time, OBJ should flourish. He seems to hit his stride as the season has progressed, having tallied double-digit fantasy totals in 4 of his last 5 starts. But I just don't think the ceiling is as high as Evans. I think the boys do a much better job in containing OBJ than the Saints will with Mike Evans. That's why I'm loving Evans over Beckham this week. Well, that's it today, friends. Best of luck with your playoff matchups this weekend and with your HotRoster picks. And for those of you who don't know what HotRoster is, go to HotRoster.com, check it out, download the app, give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game you've ever played. And then for help winning the game, check out HotRoster Today with me and my buddy Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For HotRoster now, I'm Cam Stewart, and I'll see you on the virtual gridiron.